You sit there wondering why they win, and you wait. You scroll. You hesitate. You think the next idea will be better, the next moment safer, the next sunrise kinder. But they don't wait. They decide. And that's the only real difference between you and the ones who rise. They aren't gifted more hours. They aren't handed more chances. They're just done waiting. The top 1%, the ones you admire, envy, study, they move before they're ready. They move when there's fog. They move when there's fear. And in that movement, clarity arrives. I know because I built them. I gave a blueprint to a man who became the richest soul that century had ever seen. He wasn't born with it. He didn't stumble into it. He chose it. And then he acted like it was already his. That's the kind of thought I'm offering you now. Not a strategy, not a tactic. A fire, a thought that lives so deep in your belly it replaces your fear. A thought that breaks the pattern of indecision you've been dragging through every day of your life. The world taught you to analyze, compare, delay, to scroll instead of speak, to think instead of act. But success, real, grounded internal power, doesn't come to thinkers. It comes to deciders. You think you're being wise by waiting? You're being tricked. By your comfort, by your past, by your perfectly reasonable excuses. I've watched entire empires collapse inside a man's mind because he refused to choose. And I've watched beggars become millionaires because they clung to one decision like it was air. So now I'll ask you, what's your one thought? Not the thought you share with friends, not the one you scribble and forget, the one you're terrified to say out loud because you know it would require everything from you. That's the thought I want. That's the one that separates the few from the many, because here's the secret. The world isn't holding you back. You are. You don't need motivation. You don't need another podcast. You need to become the kind of person who moves when he's called, not when he's comfortable. There is no right time. There is no perfect mood. There's just this moment and what you decide in it. And I know what you want. You want wealth. Not just money, but the kind that fills a room when you walk in. You want discipline, the kind that keeps promises even when the mood dies. You want peace, the kind that comes from knowing you earned the life you're living. But none of that starts until you think like the 1%. And the 1% think in absolutes. They don't say, I'll try. They say, it's done. Then they walk forward like time is on their side. Because once you decide, it always is. So I'm not going to tell you to hustle. I'm not going to tell you to grind. That's noise. I'm going to ask you to choose to take that dream you keep locking in the attic of your mind and drag it into the daylight, to feel the heat of it, the weight of it, and then decide that it is non-negotiable. You want to know how transformation starts? One thought, held like a sword, believed like breath, reinforced like ritual, acted on without mercy. You're not weak, you're just scattered. You're not behind, you're just undecided, and you're not broken. You're just one thought away. That's the thought that separates them. That's the thought that builds kings. And it can be yours the moment you stop scrolling and start becoming.